Hey there. So, you know how we always want our React apps to run smoothly? Enter the React Profiler, our superhero for sniffing out performance issues. It's like a performance microscope for our components. To get it rolling, we wrap our component in this less than profiler greater than tag, give it a unique id, and hook up an onRender callback. This way, every time our component renders, we get detailed timing info right in the console. It's like having a stopwatch for each paint job our component does. Hey, check out this cool way to gather performance metrics in React. We're wrapping my component with a profiler tag and assigning it an id. Then, we use the onRender callback function to log performance data like render duration and commit time. Whenever my component renders, this profiler will provide us with detailed insights, helping us to optimize our component's performance effectively. Pretty handy for keeping our app snappy, right? When React wraps up drawing a component, it shouts out to the onRender callback, dropping some cool stats. If it's a newbie component, just getting its feet wet, React flags it as a mount. But if it's just updating its look, maybe new props or state, it's an update. This function gives us the scoop on how long the paint job took and when it started and finished. It's like a stopwatch for every render, super handy for catching what slows down the show. Imagine we have a button that keeps track of how many times it's been clicked, kind of like a tally counter. Every time you click it, the number goes up. But here's the cool part. We're spying on the button with something called a profiler. It tells us how long it takes for the button to update its count each time we click it. So it's not just counting clicks, it's kind of like timing itself, kind of like a sprinter with a stopwatch. When using the React Profiler in development, it adds a bit of overhead, which is why it's not active by default in production. However, you can enable it for more accurate performance insights in your live app. You'd need to tweak your build configuration for that. Once set up, the Profiler's onRender callback tracks how your components render, giving you timings and helping identify slow spots. Just remember, don't leave profiling on in production longer than needed. Always keep your user experience snappy. Imagine you're a detective analyzing clues on the performance of a React component. You've set a trap, a profiler wrapping your optimized component. When it renders, it spits out performance times. The actual duration is how long it really took, and the baseline predicts the time if no optimizations like React Memo were in place. If actual is less than baseline, you crack the case of performance gains. If it's more, you've got a regression on your hands. Same times? No changes. It's like a performance showdown right in your console logs. Imagine you're a detective, and you want to understand every layer of an application's performance. By using nested less than profiler greater than components, you can do just that. You place a less than profiler greater than around each major section, like the navbar, sidebar, and main content. As they render, you get fine-grained data for each part, which you can log or aggregate to uncover the most resource-hungry elements, making your app as efficient as a well-oiled machine. While less than profiler greater than is a handy tool to measure components rendering performance, caution is advised. Over-profiling, especially on simple components, can lead to unnecessary performance hits. It's like putting a speed tracker on a snail. You won't get much insight, and it just adds extra weight. Use it selectively, like on complex components that might be slowing down your app. Think of it as a strategic move, deploying performance spies only where you suspect there might be trouble. Imagine you have a React app where you're using context to pass down some data. Now, take a look at this neat trick to spot where performance might drag. We've got this profiler component wrapping around our context provider. With this setup, every time the context changes, like when we click this button to update the value, the profiler logs how long it took to render. This way, we can pinpoint if changing context is causing any slowdowns and optimize our components accordingly. Cool, right? Hey, let me show you how we nailed down a performance bug using React's profiler. So, we wrapped our whole app component inside a profiler and gave it a custom onRender callback. This callback logs out all the juicy details every time our component tree updates or mounts. That's the phase part. It also tells us how long the actual update took, compared to what React thinks the baseline render time is, without any caching magic. Seeing these numbers, we figured out where the bottleneck was and optimized it for a smooth, fast experience. Cool, right?